And welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. It's time for Opinion Court. You could speak to us on 22422. That's our SMS line, and of course on social media at Citizen TV Kenya. That's our Twitter handle, and we go by the same name on Facebook. Interact with us. Please use the hashtag Opinion Court so that we can track your conversation. Joining me now is Alice Wahome. She's the Kandara Member of Parliament, and Dr. Edward Kisiangani. We are discussing the 1/3 gender rule, and I must say from the very onset that we've tried to secure various male members of Parliament who are of a dissenting or contrary opinion. They declined to come to the program. But as they say, the show must go on. I'll start with you, Mheshimiwa. Tell me, in my own view, much of the political debate that is centered right now on the gender question is the fact that are the women who are in Parliament performing? Now, this is very different from the question of the August deadline, which is that we do not have the requisite number of women in the House. Why do you think the debate so far has been skewed on women's performance rather than their constitutional right?
I think that is an attempt to divert attention from the real question, and of course from the responsibility that as a nation, as a country, we must fulfill and perform. You remember, this is really not a matter of much choice. We are implementing the Kenya Constitution that we passed, all of us, in 2010. At least you could say the majority, because we had almost 70%, that's about 67 to 68% of Kenyans did pass this constitution at the promulgation date. And therefore, when issues of performance of the women members of Parliament is brought as a reason why we should not implement the 2/3, actually not 1/3, it's 2/3 gender principle. And here we need to clarify that when we talk about 2/3 gender principle, this rule covers both gender, so that in a situation where maybe as we move forward, then we may have more women, and that's why the provisions are talking about gender, not women, not 1/3 for women. So we do not want a situation where any elective or appointive body in this country is occupied by maybe 100% women or 100% men. So therefore, the 2/3 gender principle, which is captured in Article 27, which is actually within the Bill of Rights, and also for Parliament, Article 81, and for the county assemblies, Article 177. So the question is, the women performance, should we then have more? No, yes, because we are implementing the Constitution the way it is. When we come to amend, we shall consider whether this is a relevant provision or not. So what audit has been done to actually pull out or bring out the performance of women or men to that, for that matter? We have an audit, and you know, women are 86 out of 348 house. So therefore, when the question is being asked, or the excuse that women are not performing, whose standard are we using? Is there any scientific research that has been carried out, and who developed the tool? So this is just a simple statement to actually bring a cloud around the debate.
Prof, is it something that you agree with?
I think far from saying that it is probably a diversionary tactic, I think, and there's a bigger problem to that. Actually, when you see people saying, are women performing? It goes back to the gentlemen and women who framed up our Constitution. There was something which was not properly defined in that Constitution, and which, according to what Parliament and some other people are saying, we need to deal with the question of gender. What does gender mean? Does it mean women and men, or female and males? This thing was never defined in our Constitution, because I think those who are taking advantage of this diversity in terms of defining what gender means are taking advantage, and they're saying that now there are very many men in Parliament who support quote-unquote women's rights and empowerment, but there are also women there who are enemies of the real women's empowerment. So you can get people, because gender, when you talk about gender, you're talking about male and female, which are natural categories. But women and men are social constructions. We are socially constructed. When I call a woman, I'm saying there are a set of things within my community which go with what being female is. So we construct you as a woman. Also, we construct men. So is that the same? When you look at our Constitution, everywhere, Article 45, everywhere they have interchangeably been used, male and female, to mean the same thing. That is the crisis that we need to sort out when we come to what? To the referendum, if they are suggesting that. So it's not just diversionary, but it's a reflection of the problem we have with regard to meaning of gender and the meaning of male and female.
Leave alone the meaning of the gender, Prof. There is also the argument that it coming so late in the day, I mean, this deadline for constitutional implementation is August, just a few months away. And really that this has been something where they've had a long time period to deal with. That women perhaps have failed in articulating the seriousness of the matter, articulating what their position is, and maybe partly to blame for the, you know, the status that we find ourselves in. Is that something you would agree with?
You see, in terms of legislation, the female gender have not been doing very well. In fact, they have been put together with men, and they have been pursuing agenda of men and forgetting that they need this legislation to take place. So there are several laws in which our women have participated in, which actually violate the Constitution. And on this one, they don't want the Constitution to be violated. Really, the bottom line to this debate, Anne, is this. We don't have an option in terms of implementing the Constitution. So we must remain true to the Constitution. Under Article 3 of the Constitution, we all must protect the Constitution. In the absence of a different dispensation, the 2/3 gender rule that is put in the Constitution in Article 81 must remain until the process by which the Constitution provides for amendments is taken through the whole Republic, and we do it in Article 255, 256, 257. If we take that tangent and we think there are other points of amendment, we shall do it through referendum or through parliament if it is possible. But in this case, it is going to be through what? Through referendum, because it touches on the Bill of Rights, and under Article 255, that amendment can, when you want to amend the Constitution and it touches on the Bill of Rights, it must be done through referendum. I think, yes. So therefore, if you have any complaint about the 2/3 rule, the right place to do is not to shout in the streets. The procedure is provided for in the Constitution under Article 255. And you can do that and go through the assemblies, and you change the Constitution through that. But the other thing that people are talking about on the streets, which do not go by what the Constitution provides, is just hot air.
Alex, tell me, because there are a myriad of suggestions that have been proposed, and none that I know of that you know, a significant caucus of women representatives has supported, and I want to run you through them. There is a proposal by the Legal Affairs Committee Chair Samuel Chepkonga to suspend the implementation of the gender rule. What issues do you have with that?
Okay, let's first agree that this debate has been long before known that it is going to come. I hear the question that women are being accused of possibly staying too long and not working. You know, the obligation is actually not on the women. The Constitution is very clear. The implementation of the Constitution has several state organs. One of those organs is the Attorney General. The other one is CIC. And of course the country, the executive, is supposed to have brought this registration using those organs, those institutions that I have said. So that the obligation under Article 27, which is in the Bill of Rights, is actually not on women or men. The obligation is actually on the state. So that when you then go to Article 261, the Attorney General is supposed to present the law, the legislative framework that is supposed to support then the 2/3 gender rule. Once he brings it, then Parliament also has no choice under the same Article 261. It has to register it. Of course, Parliament can now talk about those things they are saying. And you know, the question must be asked, why would we think so heavily about amendment? Because Chepkonga's proposal is to amend through the Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs, is to amend and bring progressive, which was not really the idea that, and I know where he's coming from, because when you look at Article 281, there are of course some affirmative action is supposed to be implemented progressively, but then Article 81 is very clear. No institution will be, and Parliament itself has been carved out there that it must meet that gender rule. So therefore, women have been saying and have been talking. Of course, they have moved very quickly now. They did not, I believe, expect this to happen. The Attorney General himself went to Supreme Court and obtained an advisory opinion, which set the deadlines. These deadlines are actually in Schedule 5, and therefore, basically, he was going to be told what we all knew. But of course, the court was very clear, because it said we must have a registration, legal framework, by August 27th this year. And that's why we are all running then.
You know, you brought in a bit of a political question, because you're talking about goodwill by the executive to implement the same. I know the Attorney General has asked yourselves to hold on this question, that if you were to actually go to a referendum on it, that the entire question may be lost, and that he's working on some separate legislation on the same, I think, in a year's time or so. But I want to play a clip first by Prime Minister Raila Odinga. They have the Okoa Kenya initiative, and this is what they've been saying about the equity question. And my question to you, Prof, is, coming from the perspective where she's talked about a lack of political will in as far as the Jubilee administration is concerned in implementing this gender question, could Okoa Kenya just score points with women? Listen, and then we'll talk.
I fully support the 2/3 gender rule. And I really want to urge that nobody should try to renege on promises that were made to the people of Kenya. But for a speaker to prematurely preempt the debate by saying, scrap them, who told him that he had the powers to scrap anything? There's nothing that should be scrapped. In our view, we have a moral obligation to ensure that the Constitution that we passed after so many years of struggle is implemented to the letter.
Prof, do you see this becoming a significantly divisive political issue?
I think from the point of view of Okoa Kenya, that is hypocrisy of first class order. Because if you look at Parliament as currently constituted, it has a number of people elected on coalition, and members of the Okoa Kenya are in that Parliament. At what point, you see, we are caught up in May, and we have just 3 months to do this legislation on. Have we had voices from the CORD coalition, for example, saying that we are late on this legislation on gender, or they are just taking advantage of this because it would hit their opponents below the belt? The point is that it's correct. We want this equity. We want women representation to go according to the Constitution. But I don't think that you can make political mileage out of it by just saying the Constitution must be implemented. Remember, Anne, even on this show we have occasionally pointed out that there have been legislations in Parliament in which members of Okoa Kenya have either participated or just kept quiet. Most of them have been unconstitutional. But whenever there is a crisis, they stand aside as if they are not in Parliament, and then say, you know, the executive is the one which is not doing the right thing. We want this to be a continuous process so that members of the political divide, both sides of the political divide, can come up every time reminding everybody that we are late on this legislation, or this legislation is unconstitutional. So for me, he's saying the correct point, but I think in terms of political mileage, it is an opportunist approach to issues.
He also mentioned the Speaker's move, and there seems to be some sort of peddling back on it. He basically wanted the abolition of the women's rep seats and others, you know, in favor for 100 affirmative action positions. What?
Yeah, I think because women have actually been having very many caucuses, and they have also recently, as early as late as yesterday, engaged the Speaker himself. The Speaker has clarified, and I think what the Speaker was concerned and worried about is that if it is something that we can do through the parliamentary process without thinking about referendum, through a legislative bill, other than other than amending the constitution, and therefore the proposal that he was coming up with. However, if you are to remove 47 women, we still, because those are counted seats, but their constituency is defined for 47 women, then you still have to visit the amendment of the constitution. And the women have been consulting with various organizations, and the Attorney General has been part and parcel of those processes. Gender and Equality Commission, the Commission on Implementation of the Constitution, that is the CIC, the Nyachai Commission. The Legal and Justice Affairs Committee has also been involved. The CIOC, that is a committee where I sit, have been having there has been a technical team that was put up and chaired by the Gender and Equality Commission. You know, Gender and Equality Commission is a government agency. So it's not that the government has not been working and stakeholders. However, there has been a clear case that the Attorney General has been slow. And we are putting actually this on his table. And we have challenged him and told him, look, we are expecting you to move. There is a bill that has been discussed and agreed upon, which mainly proposes that we lift Article 177 of the Constitution that brings a top-up after the elections. Then we'll know how many women we need to fill up, to increase, so that we can get the number and the gender rule be met. That has been very well fulfilled or implemented in the county assemblies where we used Article 177. So that one then lifted to Article amending Article 97 and 98, so that the process is also cleared.
But you know, Honorable Ahome,
let me just clarify. So those numbers then will be the 47 plus whichever number of women we shall come up from after elections through the 290 constituencies. Like today we have 16. I'm one of the 16 women elected from the constituencies. Right. And there is also 12 nominations, then you'd expect maybe 6 to be women. So when you do that top up, if today we were to meet the gender rule, Edward, we will have just an extra 48 women. Then we will be okay within the Constitution. And that's why we are saying, if you amend Article 97 and 98, you have a guarantee. And you know, we don't even actually have to have those 48. If we elect women in the 290 constituencies, as many as possible, political parties and the government must be facilitative, so that then when we come to nominations, we have more women coming out and being elected.
And so you're pegging your hopes on this bill by the Attorney General?
We are demanding that the Attorney General brings the bill. Women have already moved forward. There is a bill by Judith Sijeni, agreed by women, which is now pending in Senate. There is also a bill by Honorable Ses Barire. They are not their bills, they are women's bills. On this Article 97, Articles 97, and we are proposing to amend the Constitution, but basically just lift. You know, it was there, but removed in Naivasha.
Yeah, but you know, the central problem to me, Prof, appears that when it comes to women's questions, they are women's questions. They're not Kenyan problems. They are women problems, and that isolates a section of the public, perhaps even from this conversation. And she's talked about this not being necessary if we were to go to an election and the people and you watching at home decide to actually vote in women. But are we really there as a society? I mean, we didn't see that in the previous election, really, save for the affirmative action slots, and perhaps women like yourself were the exception to the rule.
Only 16.
Only 16 who actually are willing to battle it out with men on the ground, given all the issues of financing, the threat of violence, etc. against women. Do you think the Kenyan populace is mature enough to give more women a chance come 2017? Will their performance right now sort of encourage more women to go out and vote for women?
Can I just say, Alain, so that he can now take the rest?
Sure, go ahead.
The last elections, we had about 10,000 men candidates and about 1,000 women candidates. The statistics show that 13% women were elected and 14% men were elected. So really, if we have more numbers of women encouraged by political parties, encouraged by the government through affirmative action programs, then you see those statistics show that actually women, Kenyans are ready to elect women.
Prof.
Maybe he can put someone there.
You see that the question is, more issues are emerging out of this discussion, because there are people who are saying in low tones that probably the number of women is going to increase the budget for salaries and emoluments, so it's going to be very, very expensive. Then others are saying that is it just the quantity you are looking for, and will that translate into the transformation of our electoral system, so that women rights are adhered to and are protected? These are issues which are coming up, but the bigger problem is our cultural background in this country, and if you look at most cultures, the boys are paid for school fees before the girls in very many cultures, and for some cultures they find it very hard to believe that you are going to bring women to the fore. So at the point of constituent level, at the point of at the ward level, what other activities are going on to tell people that in fact if we empower women, we solve a Kenyan problem? Because that is where we begin. Why are so few women opting to stand for elections? Why are they? Because culturally they are threatened out of elections. They are intimidated. They are scandalized.
What's the solution?
The solution is
politics is dirty.
No, it is dirty, but it is worse with women. And the point is that we must go to the wards. That is where politics begins. These communities, we must change their cultural setup. Parliament must put in place a fund, in fact set aside a fund which can go into the wards to tell people that if we are going to empower our women, we are going to empower this nation. This has not been done, and even no woman in Parliament is asking for this fund. Have you ever?
They have been actually agitating
yes, we
for
have, because once we succeed, maybe we are doing parallel processes. Possibly we have not clarified to the nation, and we need to be doing that. I hear you. We are asking for a fund actually to be created so that it will support women, and you are right, culturally, economically, violence, electoral violence, party manipulations and intimidations. Parties have owners who are not women, all those issues. So a fund has been proposed, and you see, when we say affirmative action programs and policies, it includes a fund like Edward is talking about.
I must wind up that question there, but Prof, because it's a political program, I know you're itching to talk about the crisis in Burundi. One word, what do you think about what's happening right now?
The African disease is back. I think it is terrible. So we don't want to witness another genocide, but it is a wake-up call for Kenya. Kenya is the best example for democracy within this region. Its members in the East African community don't change leaders properly. Uganda doesn't. Kagame, we don't know when he will leave. Burundi has followed suit. Tanzania has one-party dictatorship. And Kenya must change its foreign policy so that whenever it deals with these countries, it makes sure that they do what we do here, because what is happening in Burundi and what happens in Uganda is a threat to our strategic interests in this part of the world.
Alice, very briefly.
I think it should be stopped.
Yes.
And African leaders have a role to play, and we must, and of course international community. I think we should not allow it to go the Rwanda way. On the Raila question, we shall hold him accountable. He's speaking differently. He's members of parliament, and we know them. They are very loud, including the last meeting. They are not speaking from the same script. But we will want to hold Raila as the leader of CORD with several members of parliament to account when the bill comes on the floor.
And we'll be watching. Thank you so much for your time. Alice Wahome, the Kandara Member of Parliament, and Edward Kisiangani, our resident political analyst. We're back with more news after these messages.